This is the story of Catherine Howard, a young woman who was tragically executed not long after becoming the fifth wife of King Henry VIII. Henry is known in part for his many wives, which led to the phrase divorced, beheaded, and died, divorced, beheaded, survived. Catherine, unfortunately, was not one to survive. She was executed when she was possibly as young as 20 years old. She was born somewhere between 1518 and 1524, with little information from the time and few confirmed records of her life at that point. It is hard to say exactly when in that time frame she was born. However, it is believed probably closer to 1524. Her father was Edmund Howard, who was the son of Thomas Howard, the second Duke of Norfolk, seen on the left, um, which made Catherine the Duke's niece. Her mother was Joyce Leigh, making Catherine's grandfather Sir Richard Culpeper of Aylesford, Kent. She came from a powerful family line, though her direct branch was slightly removed from that due to the Duke being her uncle and not her father. Her mother had multiple children, with 5 from her first marriage and then another 5 with Catherine's father, giving her a lot of siblings as one of 10 children. Like many others during the time, there were a lot of connections between notable families. Catherine is also related to both Anne Boleyn and Jane Seymour, Henry VIII's second and third wives, respectively. Anne was also executed, and Jane died shortly after giving birth to Henry's son. When Catherine was young, her mother passed away, and she was sent to live and be raised with by her step grandmother, Agnes Tilney, the Duchess of Norfolk, the Dowager Duchess of Norfolk. Um, and the Duchess lived at Chesworth House near Horsham, Sussex. That is a more modern photo of it, so it likely didn't look exactly that way when Catherine lived there. The Duchess ensured that Catherine was educated, such as how to read, how to write. Part of her education was being trained in music. So, a man named Henry Mannix was her music teacher. When Catherine was still a young girl, he took advantage of her, where the Duchess saw them embrace, and she punished Catherine for it, rather than remove Henry from the situation, which is unfortunate response, as Catherine was likely around 12 years old at this time. Catherine would later admit to having had relations with Mannix. Approximately 2 years later, when Catherine was around 14 years old, they moved from Sussex to Norfolk House in Lambeth, London. On the left, there is an illustration of a portion of where they would be living. It was here that Catherine would meet a man named Francis Dereham, who worked as the Duchess's secretary. Francis, like Henry, took advantage of Catherine. She was still quite young, only around 14, and he would have had a position of power over her as being the Duchess's secretary. Some have said they could often hear them in the bedchamber together and that they addressed one another as husband and wife. It has been speculated that while Dereham referred to Catherine as his wife, she may not have returned the favor of calling him husband, or that if she did, it was because she was still young and trying to appease him. When in 1539, Catherine would have been approximately 15. She gained a position with Anne of Cleves, thanks to her uncle, the Duke of Norfolk. It was known that Henry VIII did not regard Anne of Cleves, his fourth wife, with much respect. He did not find her attractive and had many affairs throughout all of his marriages and was just unhappy with this relationship. He took an interest in Catherine. It quickly became obvious to everyone that the king had feelings for her. It was noticed throughout court and even by Anne herself. It was commented that the king crept too near another lady, and Anne is said to have complained about her husband's attraction to Catherine. Jumping back a little bit in time to 1531, Henry challenged the Roman Catholic Church and the Pope in order to be able to divorce his first wife, Catherine of Aragon. Divorce, of course, was not permitted within the Catholic Church. So Henry, in a radical move, defied them and established the Church of England, of which he declared himself the supreme head of, which allowed him to annul his marriage, or marriages plural. And to annul the marriage meant that the marriage was never actually valid. So on July 12th, 1540, Henry successfully annulled his marriage with his fourth wife, Anne of Cleves, on the grounds that she had been previously engaged and that they had yet to consummate the marriage. And this allowed him to legally pursue his fifth wife, Catherine. 2 weeks after the annulment with Anne, on July 28th, Henry and Catherine were married. And on August 8th, she was announced as queen at Hampton Court Palace, which a more recent photo of is on the left. Catherine was said to have been a beautiful young woman, and despite having few available portraits of her, everyone knew how attracted Henry was to her. Her youth and beauty is what made him so interested, especially because at this time he was 49 and beginning to have some health concerns. And in the face of this, having a young wife probably brought him that same sort of feeling of youth. This is, of course, a dramatized depiction for television, but it kind of puts into perspective the stark contrast between the two. Catherine was said to have been a warm and friendly girl. She helped to pardon prisoners and received Anne of Cleves kindly. But due to her looks and her age, she had very little freedom as Henry's wife. She used the phrase non ultra volante que la sienne, which translates to no other will but his, which is a testament to her new role with Henry. Along with being a new wife and queen, she also now had the role of stepmother to Henry's children from his previous marriages. Henry's daughter, Mary, was older than Catherine, and it is believed that the two did not get along, probably for that reason. And Elizabeth and Edward seemed to get along fine with her. It was rumored that Catherine once fell pregnant, but it is likely just rumors, as due to Henry's age and health, he was potentially impotent. So Catherine would never go on to bear any children. So her former lover, Francis, soon appeared at court, and this was the beginning of the process of Catherine's past coming to light. Around the same time, she started having an affair with Thomas Culpeper. He was a gentleman of the king's privy chambers. Not only that, he was also a relative of hers because her maternal grandfather was a Culpeper as well. It is believed that he was a predator among women. However, he had close access to Catherine being at court. She wrote a letter to Culpeper and it was highly incriminating as evidence of an affair. She signed this letter, "Yours as long as life endures." It would be this piece of evidence that would lead to her execution. Despite the letters, it's now being thought that Catherine may have, again, just been trying to appease Culpeper, as she may have with Darham, as he had a history of being a predator and she was still young with little freedom of her own. Um, I could not read the letter without a written out transcript, but I do think it's interesting. This is one of the few confirmed records that exist still of Catherine. In 1541, Thomas Cranmer, the Archbishop of Canterbury, was informed of Catherine's past by someone from her childhood. He gave the news to the king, detailing what he had learned about Catherine's previous and now current relationship, and he left an account of what he knew for the king in the chapel of Hampton Court Palace. Henry was, of course, upset and demanded the accusations be further investigated, leading to a series of interrogations. I, again, could not read the writing of this without it written out. However, it does display how detailed he was in the account of his interview with Catherine to Henry. Catherine confessed to having had relations with Henry Mannix, Francis Dereham, and Thomas Culpeper on November 8th, 1541. Jane Boleyn, Lady Rochford, she is the widow of Anne Boleyn's brother, had also confessed to helping Catherine with her affair with Culpeper. Within the month, she was stripped of her title as queen and moved from Hampton Court Palace to a monastery while being made to stay in her chambers with Jane, who it is believed that the woman pictured here was a likeness of Jane Boleyn. In a bill of attainder, which stated that any queen who did not disclose previous relations would be an act of treason, and Catherine was condemned to death along with Jane and the men that she had the relations with. On February 10th, 1542, Catherine and Jane were both taken to the Tower of London, and on February 13th, she was executed. Catherine's remains were mistreated. There's not much left of what is believed to be her, but her remains are buried in the chapel of St. Peter ad Vincula and are still there today. Today, there are also rumors that the ghost of Catherine can be heard and spotted in the haunted gallery at Hampton Court, that she runs through the hall screaming, pleading for forgiveness from the king. Ghost stories or not, Catherine deserves to be recognized for her story, as it is completely unfortunate the way the events of her life played out. She was a young girl who was taken advantage of by multiple men and thrust into the life of a queen and mother before even leaving her teenage years, and she did not get much of a chance. Here are my many citations, and thank you for watching.